Hi, my name is Rashada Dawan, and this is how I create.
Welcome to This Is How We Create, a show that digs deeper into the creative life of contemporary artists of color. Discover what feeds their creativity and how they found or are finding their artistic voice. Through these intimate and candid conversations, you'll gain insights into the lives of creative professionals of color that are hard to find anywhere else. Welcome back to This Is How We Create. My name is Martine Severin, your host. Today, we're joined by Rashada Dawan, a multifaceted force in Chicago's art and cultural landscape. A singer, actress, writer, and community leader, Rashada has graced stages across the country, perhaps most notably as Shenzi in Disney's The Lion King national tour. She's appeared in acclaimed TV series, including 61st Street and The Chi, and recently received the prestigious Walder Foundation Award at the 2023 Three Arts Awards. Beyond her performing career, Rashada is the founder and executive director of B-Fly Productions, which creates vital opportunities for youth in Chicago. Her journey from church choirs to national tours, from mental health work to full-time artistry reflects her deep commitment to both artistic excellence and community impact. She calls herself a soul singer, not because she's limited to one genre, but because she brings soul to everything she touches, whether it's classical, jazz, gospel, or R&B. A graduate of Florida A&M University with a master's degree from Grosvenor State University, Rashada continues to perform nationwide while raising her two daughters and leading community initiatives. Her latest creative endeavor is her new book, The Tree People Within. Rashada, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Wow. I always hear stuff about myself and I'm like, really? Wow. It's a lot of stuff.
Rashada, I'd love to start the show by having you tell us about growing up in Chicago and about the role of music, or at least the role that music played in your life.
Oh man. Some of my earliest memories of music involve classic Saturday morning cleanup time. And I remember my dad had this maybe 4-foot speaker, record player, tape player. I don't think CDs were around then. So it was probably tapes, cassettes, and a record player with speakers at the bottom of it. And it had these lights that would rotate while the record spin. And I remember hearing music like Shirley Murdoch, Regina Bell, Anita Baker, Patti LaBelle, and I would Sade. And that was music that we cleaned up to. And he's still a big fan of Marvin Gaye. And so I definitely just remember singing all those songs and then going to be dragged to church at around 8 or 9 years old. And the kid just fall asleep while the church is going on. But you hear, I was always up for when the choir sang. Those are probably my most earliest moments before I personally started singing myself.
Well, tell me about that first time where you started singing. How did you come to join your church's choir?
Well, it was a little bit before then. So I remember going to my grandmother's house and watching. I was addicted to The Wiz. I was watching The Wiz 2 and 3 times a day. And I remember jumping on the bed, singing Home, singing You Can't Win, or even imitating. I remember Anita Baker's Rapture video and just imitating everything that she did, or No One in the World, or Whitney Houston was my favorite. I was singing to my remote control and practice kicking my shoes off like Patti LaBelle. So for me, just imitating those people, I don't know, somehow I think maybe I took that to school with me. And then in 5th grade, probably around 8 or 9, my teacher at the time, Miss Diaz, she must have heard me humming or something and realized Rashada needs to sing. And she said, I want you to sing for parent teacher conference. And I was like, what? And all the parents came And I remember studying those floor planks, looking down and singing Whitney Houston's Miracle. And I think I probably wanted to just be absorbed by the floor because I was so nervous, so scared. But from there, it went on to being in talent shows as in Vogue and as the Supremes. And it just, before you know it, it was talent shows all over Chicago. And then my dad was taking me to talent shows. They used to have this big talent show at the Regal Theater. And I auditioned for that. I think it was just somehow I just kind of started singing. And then my dad saw some musicians and got connected, and I was recording albums. And this was all when I was still in 7th and 8th grade. And so I still remember, I'm like, gosh, how did my dad just leave me in the studio with like all these producers? But I mean, we were working and I was learning how to sing into a microphone and put, one headphone on one ear and one headphone behind so I can hear myself sing live in, the studio. I was getting all that training as a kid and I was probably about 12,
So in an interview, you said that your stepmother kind of encouraged you to not go into the performing arts. Tell us the story of that.
So in high school is when, you have to have that talk with your parents of what's next for you. And I remember being like a junior and I came to my stepmom and said, I'm going to be a singer. And she was like, well, singing doesn't pay the bills. You're going to need a job. And she said, so you need to find something that you like just as much as you do singing and go to school and major in that. It was one of the best pieces of advice that I think I've ever gotten because it encouraged me to be multifaceted. And I was able to go to school and major in psychology and minor in theater. And so I've been able to just do so many things just because of that bit of advice. And now she comes to my concerts. She was at my last concert last month. And I mean, the place was packed. Everyone was screaming at the end, just like cheering us on. And she's in the front going, if you don't do an encore, like I'm going to be mad at you. You need to encore. I'm like, okay. And I'm just like, I remember that time when she was like, you got to pick something that you love to do just as much. And now here we are where singing actually does pay my bills.
I'm glad. So then through learning or through doing theater, you started acting. And, some of us know you for your voice, but other people know you because you're an actress. Tell us about finding or sharpening that new tool set that you came to have.
So I remember I went to Curie Metropolitan High School here in Chicago, and it was a performing arts high school at the time. And I remember I really wanted to go to that school specifically because it was a performing arts school. And we used to have to test to get in there, and it was all this music theory. And I didn't know any of it, but I still took the test and got in. And so there I was doing dance girls chorus and gospel choir and competitions and all city chorus. But I remember that the music teacher at the time, she did not like those of us who were singing in the gospel choir, singing in the choir, girls chorus. So she said, if anybody here is in girls chorus and you're in gospel choir, I'm going to fail you because it's not the proper technique of singing. And in true retro fashion, I said, oh, well, then I'm not going to sing in your choir. And I went to gospel choir full on and changed my major to dance. And then they were having auditions for your Dream Girls. And I had known nothing about Broadway. I knew nothing about the show. I just know that people were like, you should audition for that. And my dance teacher was like, you should audition for that. Miss Wilson, who is still at Curie to this day. And I got in that show and I played Dina. And that was my first taste of being in a play, a musical. And then I went to FAMU for college and joined the FAMU Gospel Choir, toured all over the nation with them while in school. And the next show that FAMU put on was Dreamgirls. And I ended up playing Dina there too. So although that was just FYI, I don't know if I've talked about this, but while I was so excited, I was singing so much on campus that by the time the show started, I had all these vocal problems. Like, I think I had maybe like nodules while I did that show. And I was just drinking everything I could, and little elixir that they put my way. I was trying to just get my voice right. And man, those shows were really rough because that's when I first learned that you can overwork yourself. But yeah, all that to say, that's when I started doing musical theater.
Oh, Rashada, you are the first singer that we are having on the podcast. And so when we talk about finding your voice, we talk about it, well, traditionally on the podcast in a different way, but here we're really talking about finding your voice and taking care of your voice. I guess I have two questions from the fact that you did Dreamgirls twice and you played the same character. What did you learn from one experience to another?
Well, definitely. Well, when you're doing it in high school, it's a high school play. So, they were pulling, I don't know what the budget was, but I know that at the time, just performing it, I don't know, maybe we did it for like 2 or 3 times and, such much smaller audience. So I had a boyfriend at the time and I had to play Dina and I had to kiss a guy in the show. And, everybody was like, just, ooh, your boyfriend's in the audience. It was just like a really big deal in high school. I remember that being like the really big deal. People were asking him like, how do you feel about this? Oh my gosh. But I remember we just like had some old cute little cheap dresses on, little like feathers and stuff, whatever they could do to make it fun. And by the time we got to FAMU, like, oh, that was a production, a full on essential theater production. And the stakes were high. I have a picture of me like in a full red sequins gown, like, reading One Night Only. And so I learned that based on budgets, that made a big deal of how the show went and all that could add to the storytelling. I also learned about working in an ensemble. It's one thing to be in high school and playing with your friends. And another thing where I feel like FAM introduced me to what it was like to really do theater at a pretty professional level because they took it really seriously and they still do. And it taught me about how to sing through when you might not be feeling your best. You got to figure out how to go sell it because we're not stopping this show. And I think maybe my understudy had to go on a couple of times, but I had to figure it out and work through it.
From that experience, what did you learn about taking care of your voice?
One, that I could not do everything. I think that is a two-edged sword, if you will, because remember when I said earlier how, that my stepmom being like, you got to find something else that you find that you're just as fond of because you have to make money. That's kind of probably been my thing is I've always been in several directions because I never want to feel like I'm just doing one thing or at the mercy of one thing. But there are pros and cons to it all. And the pro is you're never really without. You're constantly creating. But the con to it is you got to know how to switch those gears and know how to pull back and know how when to push forward. And it's a really interesting, delicate dance as an artist for, I think, in any facet of figuring out how much to give and how much to not give as a creative person. So I was just learning it in college, but as an adult, my God, that's a lesson I'm still learning, to be quite honest.
Oh, I think I'm still learning that as well, Rashada.
Yeah. I mean, and we're now in the multifaceted, multi-hyphenated society where that's the thing. To be one thing is like people looking at you like, oh my gosh, all your eggs in one basket. No, you know what I mean? Now you got your average celebrity that's got the fragrance line, the liquor line, the perfume, you shoes, you know what I'm saying? Like wigs, you can't just do one thing. I feel like that's the way it is now, but I think it's costing us a great deal because we're not, it also kind of like filters out the thing that you really do, but you're trying to do all these other things. So we understand why, where that's kind of the times right now. But I think it's very important for us to also remember how delicate our gifts are. And sometimes as creatives, I don't think we give enough credit to how delicate we have to be with ourselves.
Oh, and then for you as well, you're a mom and you're a working mom and you have to be delicate with yourself and do all of the things and have your career. Oh gosh, it's a lot. And I mean, I'm going to ask a silly question. Have you found the balance? Have you hit your stride in trying to figure out, I suppose, a formula that works well for you?
No, to be quite honest, no. But I am a friend of mine. We talked about constantly perfecting this life. I think is a constant walk of perfecting. I don't think you ever really nail it. I think it gets sweeter as we get older and we get more mature. You start to really settle in and not chase so much. And you just start to sort of sit and get content with things, not settle, but just find the joy in where you are. But it's hard to do that when you're young because we don't know. We don't know what's out there. But the more we get older and see things and experience things, the more we got to go, I could pass on that. Or you can go, oh, I think I'm good. I think that's enough takes. You know what I mean? And you just be like, it is what it is. I've given out what I can. But again, it's still living through that, whether you're, 20 something just starting out and you really got a whole lot to try to figure out, or whether you're 60, 70 plus and you're figuring out, how do I settle into this space of contentment? So yeah, I don't have it figured out, but I'm definitely clear that eventually it does become much easier.
Yeah, you don't have it figured out, but you're still growing.
Absolutely.
You're
and
still
I pray
growing.
that will be forever.
Yeah, hopefully. Because I think if you stop growing, it's
dead.
all over. Yeah, you're dead.
You're over with.
Well, so at this point, I'd love to talk about a story that you shared about, in some ways, getting to a point where you thought that you would have to stop singing, or at least not stop singing, but find another job. In this case, potentially becoming a policewoman. Tell me, we called it, tell me that story. Tell me about going to the loo and what happened after that.
So I remember I worked for the Board of Education and we had gotten laid off, and I had gotten a mortgage and I had bought a home right inside of that housing crisis of like, what is it, 07, something like that. But I didn't know what any of that really meant. I just knew I was a homeowner and I was under, and I was like, and I didn't have a job. And I was like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. So at the time I was doing some consulting work, and I took myself to the library and treated myself as a client and said, okay, what's your objective? What's your mission? What's your goal? What are your priorities? And I said, what's unique about me that no one else would be able to really reproduce? And I was like, well, my story. And my mom died when I was 3. She was killed by a drunk driver, but she was holding my hand, saving my life. She was walking with me, and she saved my life, getting hit and killed. And so I was like, that's really a unique part of me that I think is sort of the underlying drive of trying to make my life worth it. So I said, well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and try to pursue artistry for a year. And let's just see what happens, Rashada. 12-month commitment. Can't do anything else but this. And I'm telling you, the clock was ticking down. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and be a police officer. My dad was a police officer. And I know I'm familiar with that. So, hey, I can still apply. Okay. And they ain't going to call me, within the 12 months. It'll be after the 12 months by the time I get the call. So I'll just see what happens, because bills were also piling up too. But every day I was still auditioning. I was still reading shows and going to the library and working out and just really trying to get an agent. And I got that casting call for Lion King was in town. I went, was in the 400s. And when the casting director told me to like come back after I had sang, I was just like, what? I remember leaving out of that room and just like falling on the ground from excitement, just so excited because I had been there for hours. And when I had auditioned for the third time that throughout that week or couple of weeks, I remember the music director asked me, why don't you do this full time? And I said, because I have a kid and I got bills and man, I can't afford to. And he said, okay. And he walked one way and I walked the other way. And months later, I was in the bathroom, got that 212 call from New York and was like, you don't pass up a 212 call. And when I answered, they call like, would you like to join the Las Vegas company? And I was like, I just screamed because the police exam was that I think I got that call on Thursday and the police exam was that Saturday. And I was just like, oh, wow. My life immediately was changed forever. And I remember even asking them like, all right, I'm putting it all out there. Can my daughter come? Because at the time my daughter was like 5. And I was like, if she can't go, I can't go. And they were like, absolutely, she can come. And I like traveled with her for 2 years. And it was just a time that I can't believe is a part of our lives. But I homeschooled her while on the road and we traveled. She was in my little passenger seat and we was just driving from city to city, performing for thousands at a time. And that was our life. So yeah, that bathroom experience changed my life.
Does your daughter remember that?
Well, yeah, my daughter is now, on TV in a show of her own. I remember when she went on set for the first time, I thought, okay, first of all, the only reason why she ended up getting an agent was because when she was on the road with me, one of the cast members at the time, they was just like in love with her. Everyone was in love with my child. And one guy, I never forget, dear friend of mine, Andrew Arrington, he said, Rashada, you need to get that child an agent because she is just, something special. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I know. And I got home and she wanted to do it. So I went and they was just happened to be having a casting call with that agency. Friends of mine were there. And I think I was running around doing errands and was like, can she wait in this line with y'all while I go do this? And they were like, yeah, we'll watch her. She got representation, went on a few auditions and we was thinking it's no different than like karate, gymnastics, ballet. No big deal. She gets called for the Shy and it was like, oh, and then I had just had another baby who was 6 weeks old at the time. And I was like, oh, we're just throwing all kind of stuff at her for after school programs and extracurricular activities. This will be nothing different. When they called her in for the third time, I was like, this might be something. And when they said she got the role, I'm telling you, I still was like, oh, that's nice. She'll get to just have an experience after traveling with me. Cool. And I remember getting on set, sitting there with the moms, and I see this little boy, and I was like, man, that guy looks familiar. I'm sitting next to his mom, and I'm like, how do I know that kid? And she was like, he just won an Oscar. And I was like, wait, what? Yeah, he won an Oscar for Moonlight. And I was like, I just couldn't believe, I didn't even know where I was. I didn't take this experience serious at all that I had my 6-week-old child with me on set thinking, and luckily she slept the whole time, but I didn't think anything of it. I'm just like, and it just all hit me like, this is serious. This is a serious show. And literally that experience of my daughter starting that show, licking that boy's face, went on to be 7 more years of her life and took her to college. She has a life that I haven't even ever experienced. And I'm just like, how does this happen? It's miraculous. It's divine. I'm still kind of like gobsmacked from God by that, quite honestly.
Well, in some ways, you were doing the same thing for her that your dad did for you.
Yeah, it's
true. He
Yeah.
identified an interest that you had and just made it happen for you being in those recording studios, and you did the same with her now to a different degree.
and it just keeps getting like more and more, right? Like I was just in the studio in 8th grade bringing my friends. And now my daughter is like on a Emmy Award winning show as like one of the regulars. And then I don't know where my 7-year-old is going to go, but she's already shot a commercial. Like I was just like, at this point, God, whatever you're going to do, I'm just here for the snacks. Like, tell me where you need me to go, because clearly you got something going on here that I know nothing about. Let me just be in the right place.
Oh, you're all just one talented family. What's your daughter's like? She has the same last name as you on the show?
No. My
That's
daughter,
why.
that's right. My daughter's name is Genesis Denise Hale.
Really?
Watch this. Even funnier story, not but not coincidence, divine connection. That Disney owned or picked up Showtime or through Paramount, however they did it. But my daughter just started getting checks like from Disney. And it was like, dang, that's crazy. Cause like Disney, Lion King, now Disney, The Shy. I was just like, and I'm sure, nobody really is making a connection anywhere. Like, this name, don't we know this? It was just like, well, we know. It's so cool.
How is she handling this? Because it's a huge opportunity in the show. We watch it. The show just like really
right. It just
blew up. Yeah.
I think for all of us, it was that. My role in it is to try to keep both of my daughters' feet on the ground. Like, that's just my whole thing is I'm that mom that's like, yo, you just came from that Grammy party or that Oscar party or whatever. Come wash the dishes. I'm that. I'm like, yeah, well, you still got to go to school, So she is still in college, but she did experience like being on campus. And it was like, she would be on campus and be like, Mom, I'm like hot with sweating. I'm walking around and I'm like trying to get back to my dorm. And people are like, aren't you that girl from, and she's like, oh gosh, So she has her moments of trying to juggle how to be cool and, hospitable and kind, but also real life, like, yo, I am trying to figure my life out and this might not be the best time for a picture. And so at 19 too, like as a teenager, we're all in that funky phase where we're just trying to get our head to match our body. Like it's, you might have a big pimple right here this day and you might have like some weird stuff happen. You're just experimenting with who you are because you have no idea. And so to try to be doing that in real time while you're also in people's homes, it's hard.
It's hard. Yeah.
It's very hard. So,
and this is also just the start of her career. So who knows?
Yeah. But I love that she gets to start. And this is what I tell her. I love that it's starting so early because I just believe that when it's starting early like this, you get better. You just learn how to do it and you find your stride even better because the challenges have started early. And my grandmother used to say, you can mess up as many times you want in your 20s, but in your 30s, they start to stick. So do whatever you want. And I feel like she's at a great time to just do whatever you want because eventually you'll get good. You'll get great.
Definitely. So one of the things we talk a lot about is how artists and creatives find their style and their voice, their creative voice. For you, literally, can you tell us about how you've come to settle into your own style as a singer?
Yeah. Well, like I was saying a little earlier, the way I started was trying to mimic artists that I loved. So I would literally sit at home and be like, Anita Baker, how do I do that? And it got good, where I could be operator and the baby. Like, where was the placement? How could she get deep like that? Or Celine Dion and curving the letters, the sounds that she would, like I would just, Karen Clark Sheard, like, how does she sing? She has this thing where she opens her mouth and her tongue kind of sits right above her teeth in a way that I had never seen a singer sing before. And I would try to do that. And so now here I am feeling like I sing now with all of that with me. Like, I think it's just one big hodgepodge of studying so many other artists that now whatever I let out is just sort of my voice now. It's coming from studying artists that I love, like Ella Fitzgerald. I wish there was a time I could just go back and sit and just watch her live. You know what I mean? Like the stuff she would do, you're like, and they just do it, Aretha. They just do it like not carelessly, but it's just without, it seems so effortless. So with my own voice, I think I just try to be true to who I am and whatever that sounds like that's to me what that is. I've heard people say, you're so strong, you're so powerful, you're so authentic. Those are the things usually connected to when I sing, because it's so powerful, or it's so loud, or it's so, you can have these wide ranges. But for me, it's just because that's what I feel.
And no matter what you do, whether you're painting or doing ceramics or photography, if that emotion isn't there, we all can tell.
Oh, yes. It's a difference between two, like, you can only mimic for so long, right? That after a while, you have to go, when do you kind of eventually let go of their hand? I used to have this picture up in my office that had all of my favorites, my favorite legends on it. And in the corner, it said, we've already done our job. Now, what are you going to do? So, yeah, you can go and just practice. But at some point, you're going to have to let go of those training wheels. And even if you're singing the cover tunes, your voice is going to come out in that,
That kind of gave me shivers. It's so true. I feel like the theme of our conversation is trusting yourself and falling into yourself and knowing that you are your safety net in some ways, that you will catch you and you'll be hug wrapped, cocooned, and you'll be just okay.
You hope, you know what I mean? Like, you hope, because that's the part, is like you sometimes, as an artist of any kind, there's that critic that's in there. There's that person that's pressing the pressure button on you to get stuff right, get it perfect, get it in there. So you hope that somehow you can find spaces to just reward yourself, or say good job, or just be thankful for everything that has been. But again, it's a constant perfecting. The journey never stops. And so, yes, sometimes it feels like a safe place of refuge, but other times, man, you're falling on a blade, because if you take too long, that inner critic in there is going to start getting to you like, what are you doing? Start picking it up, or we haven't done it. So are you losing, the craft, or is it getting soft to you? Is it, so if you're lucky, it's a dance, and I think the trust is in that. It's never, we all strive for it, but I just want to be happy. And it's like, yeah, but my grandmother used to tell me happy is a swinging pendulum. If you get too much happy, you kind of devalue it, right? And so it's finding the contentment in the dance of it, of where sometimes it can get really low, sometimes it can get really high, and sometimes you're right there in the middle. And that's okay. It's never meant to stay on either end. So you just get good at doing the dance. And I think that's where I want to be, is get content that, we just dancing. That's all. Whether you nailing it, you're not nailing it, you're sitting down being a lazy loaf, or you are working yourself to the brink of exhaustion. Man, it is a dance. And as long as we're doing it, I think that's the success.
I think we forget, we always want to be happy, but we always forget that it is a swinging pendulum. You're never going to stay in happiness your whole life.
Or else you're dead, right? Or else it's not real. Like is a song called by Greg O'Quinn. And the lyrics were that if I never had a rainy day, I'd never know you could brighten my day. If I never felt some loneliness, I'd never know of your friendliness. If I never fell to the ground, I'd never know you could help me rebound. I'd never know you this way. That's one of my favorite gospel songs, because it speaks to whenever you're feeling low. It's like, you gotta be there, because when it gets good, you only know it's so good because of how really low it was. And you learn to value it like, oh, okay, I get where this is, or I gotta be here, because when it gets good, it's going to be so well earned. It's going to be so great. But we need those reminders. You know what I mean? I think we need them. And that's everybody, creative specifically, because, I tell this to my daughter, you can be on the top of the world. I remember when acting was enough for me, when I was on set with Courtney B. Vance, Anjanou Ellis, and I'm just like in a scene with them. And I felt like I don't have to do this anymore, because this to me is the best. It's the top. I don't need to sit in the audience and hold the award. I don't need to hear my name in it. I don't need to. This is it for me. I'm good. I think this is the pinnacle of where I want to personally be. And somebody else is like, Rashada, keep going because you're going to make it. And I'm like, oh, if you only knew, I made it already in that right. To me personally, that was the reward, is that I could sit here and be with them, amongst them. It wasn't even like I was just there, like getting their coffee. I'm in a scene and I'm watching them and they're talking to me and asking questions and giving me things to do instead. And I'm like, yeah, this is the best that I think I want it to be. And that's cool for me, And right after that, I would go and pick my child up from school and come home and figure out if I'm going to make her macaroni and cheese and broccoli for dinner. Like, life keeps going. You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, I think it's good.
Before getting on this call with you, I was chopping up some onions.
Say it.
And putting some chicken to roast in the fridge, in the oven, I should say. And my husband then went to help our son with homework. And then I'm sitting here and it's always like that back and forth. And I'm sitting there like crying onions and then thinking about the questions I'm asking you and about my show notes, it is. And I think it goes back to thinking about the pendulum. And I think for me, the one thing that has been really wonderful to learn about life and to settle in and be in comfort with is that life is messy and that life is all of the little moments. And those moments are just as important as, the big ones as well.
Yes. It's just that if we can hold on to it and not minimize it, I think we would be happy being like, I get to do this and that. I get to go over here and go over there. It's like it's a full life. Because, this is the part that I don't think people talk enough about, is artists sometimes have to sacrifice that part of life. I would sit and watch Whitney Houston interviews and she'd talk about, she'd say, Whitney don't cook. Now, she might put a mean line in a rug while she's vacuuming, but I bet you that was far and in between. You know what I mean? And so artists, sometimes we abandon the simplicities of life so that we can, jump into the skin of other people. And that's a large sacrifice. Because you're staying over here all the time and you will miss some of these other things. And so the newest endeavor that I'm doing is this. I've created a channel called More Than an Artist. And it's to just give a space for artists to be seen as humans first, so that where it's not about being booked all the time. It's not about being at the awards all the time. It's not about getting the ratings or getting the numbers or selling the most records or whatever, or the concerts. Nah, like you're just a human being who has gifts and you're trying to give them out, but you don't want it to be at the expense of living your life, And I think that's something that even after being on the road for 4 years like that, like I looked up and realized, dang, I'm a little like behind, because while I'm living this amazingly fabulous, blessed experience, I'm detached from everything else. My friends are passing away, or people are getting married or having babies or going off. And you know what I mean? You kind of like your groove in life is like, you're going to chop the onions. You're going to protect your kid in. You're going to like watch your favorite TV show. You're going to go to bed and then realize what you want to do the next day. When you're living on the road, that's a world of its own. You're going to the gym. You're going back home. You're resting your voice because you got rehearsal later, only to go on stage. You might go get something to eat after that, but you're coming back home and you're about to do that again. And maybe you talk to a few people about at home, but a lot of times you're in that rhythm. So you kind of look back and go, whoa. You get back home, you're like, what's been happening? You're attached. So all that to say that it's helpful to be mindful as artists that we deserve to also be human beings that aren't always nailing it and climbing it or making it, but just being alive.
We forget about that part because we're too busy, as you mentioned, climbing that latest mountain. There was a book I was reading where someone was talking about how they spent most of their lives having lunch with friends, hanging out with friends, and they spent the weekends working. And after some time, they found all they had were weekday friends and not weekend friends. And so then what happens when you need support? You need acknowledgement. People who are your colleagues in one way, but people who are your friends, people who knew you before those are the people that really are there to pick you up.
Isn't that the gift, right?
It is the gift. It is the gift. And I think sometimes we focus too much on the tax, and the tax of success is that we don't get to indulge in those relationships because we're too busy doing, we're too busy achieving. And there's nothing wrong with that. The dream is to achieve and to do more than we could ever have imagined. It's to grow, and it's to live that life we always dreamt about. But that life we've always dreamt about comes with taxes. And those taxes often are the personal relationships. It's time spent with loved ones because the work takes up all the time.
And you at any time can change it. And it's not even about being like extremes of giving it away, but it just can go, I think this is enough. I think I've done this for the day. I think I'm good. Let me go. If I work on the weekends, I'm going to stop early and go call a friend and see if they want to hang out. You know what I mean? Like, we at any time can adjust this thing. We don't have to keep doing it in a way. Sometimes, like, I get on LinkedIn, I have to get off because I'm like, I find my brain start to be like, I need to be doing this now. I need to be doing that now. I need to make this connection, go to that networking thing, do that. No, you don't. I'm totally okay right where I'm at. I don't need to achieve anything up. I'm good for this moment. So you got to, once you, again, talk about that rhythm, like we opened up at the top, right? Once you find it, you're like, I don't need that. Or, oh, these shoes don't fit anymore. I've been squishing my foot down there. I don't need to do that. And now, so I won't talk about singing. I think now of singing as something that I fully just can enjoy. It is no longer something that I use to support myself. Same thing as acting. It is something that I do when I want to. It is no longer something that I do to fully now support myself. Now, that is a privilege and a luxury that it might not last forever. But where I'm at right now, I get to be like, whew, I just want to go do this gig. And I never have to ask how much they pay because I'm just doing it because I enjoy it. Before it would be a part of like this thing, it's budget,
Yeah.
or no, if it's not paying at least that, I don't even worry about that anymore because now I just get to pour my heart into whatever it is that I'm doing.
So then do you find that you approach singing and acting, do you approach your art in a different way because that pressure is no longer there? And if so, how?
Yeah. So like, let's say with acting, I used to hate the process, but now I love the process because you get to spend time with the character and really pull it apart and really look at the nuances and think about the backstory and all of that. And then you get to do it like over and over and over again to see what lands and what doesn't. I'm not really crazy about TV because you don't get to do that. You got one take to hit it, right? And you might get 2 or 3 more, but you don't want to be there all night trying to get it because now you're wasting time. So theater allows you to play. TV is like, nah, you got to find the sweet spot and deliver. With music, though, oh man, the way I prep for shows is like, I'll like get the set list and think about the songs, put on the instrumental tracks and just sing them all in my house. And I just walk around and sing all the songs. And I'll like think about things I want to do with it or experiment what comes to me when I'm doing it. Usually I'm washing dishes or when I'm just kitchen is my spot. And then by the time the show comes, it's like whatever happens, happens. With theater, with musicals, it's timed and you're with an ensemble. So you got to kind of nail it. And it's the same thing all the time. You can't really go too far about how you feel You play with it to lock it down so that you, the director, and everybody else you're working with gets it. But when it's a concert, you can flow with you and the band, you and the music director lock in. You can just let that thing play out. And the thing that we like to do, I'm with this band, Chicago Soul Spectacular. We have started to do this thing where I'll say at the beginning, hey, audience, this is live music. And so what you're about to experience is a group of really professional people who love what we do. And we may completely jack this up because it's live. We probably only had 1 or 2 rehearsals. We don't know what's about to happen. So what we're going to do is do this together, and you're going to experience right now what's happening in real time with us. And then they feel a part of it. And so now if we do something that goes left, or we got to do something and start over, they're not like, what is this? We paid this for this. How dare you? They feel like they're a part of an organic thing that's living and breathing, and they laugh at it with us. Or they look and be like, oh, yeah, we did hear y'all start over with that. Or are those the words? And I get to go, we just going with it. Like, it just makes us feel like now we're connected. That's what I live for. I love that. I think right now we need that.
Yeah, these are some interesting times. Yeah, we definitely do need that.
Yeah, it's like funny how we like, now it's cool to mess up. It's like funny to mess it up because everything is so planned and curated that to catch something off is like, was something off? Did I miss it? We're looking for show me the flaw, because that's the humanness. Yeah, I love that. I love that. I miss it. And so I try to now, if I can, try to get out of my head about it. Like, 'cause sometimes you're in social media and you're like, I don't know how much of this I should show. You know what I mean? I don't know how much of this I should say. I don't know how much of this I should post. But somewhere another humanist gets in there and you'll be like hoping that it connects with somebody else.
Well, Rashada, this was so much fun. I think I could talk with you for a long time.
This is a gift. Thank you so much for just allowing me to even end my night like this. I really appreciate it a lot.
Hi there. I have a quick favor to ask you before you go. If you're loving the show, would you mind taking a quick second to leave us a 5-star review on your favorite go-to podcast app? Here's the thing. Those reviews are like magic fairy dust. They help other creatives of color discover our show and tap into their own artistic superpowers. While you're at it, why not subscribe to our Substack newsletter, Creative Matters? Creative Matters is like a weekly dose of inspiration delivered straight to your inbox. You can find the link to subscribe in the show notes. All right, that's all that I have for you today. I can't wait to see you on the next episode. Bye.